7 o'clock. 15 seconds.
We're on.
I'm waiting on the
It's up.
signal.
It's up there.
Signal's on.
We're on.
So,
We're up.
we're up. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Xenia City Council to order. And if you have your electronic devices, please silence them so that we don't get disturbed in the course of the meeting. And I'd like to ask the I was getting everybody silent, but all right. We'd like to ask Reverend McNeely to do the invocation, followed by a pledge of allegiance led by Councilman Scrivens.
Gentlemen, I was reading today in the book of Judges out of chapter 6 about the story of Gideon. And basically what it comes down to is that he started off with thousands of mighty warriors like you guys are, and he whittled down to where he had 300 men who took on over 100,000 Midianites. The Midianites were a terrible group, and they skinned their captives and did all kinds of things. The point I'm trying to make is that Gideon, in his service, he asked of a mighty God who answered him in two different ways. And so that's what we're here tonight, is that whatever we say and whatever we do, let's hope that we use wisdom, directed of God, so that we can be found faithful to the community. Let's pray. Father, we do come to you tonight, Lord, and we are so thankful. We're so thankful, Lord, that you gave us this opportunity tonight to come to this place to be about the business, Lord, of the city of Xenia. Father, I pray over each council member, our mayor, our vice mayor, city manager, others, Lord. I pray, God, that tonight they would be full of your mercy, full of your grace, full of wisdom, Lord, that they would be faithful, Lord, in the duties that you've given them. And that, Lord, that you would bless their efforts, Lord, as they rely upon you. I thank you, Lord, for this meeting. I thank you for this time, and I thank you for these folks that are here. And we pray your blessing in Christ's precious name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Duke, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Scrivens?
Present.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Here.
Councilman Smith?
Here.
Councilman Dean?
Here.
Mayor May?
Here.
Vice President Wallace?
Here.
President Engel?
The chair will entertain a motion regarding President Engel.
Yes, Mr. Vice President, I'll make a motion to excuse President Engel tonight due to illness.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we excuse President Engel due to illness. Call the roll.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor May?
Aye.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And now the chair will entertain a motion regarding the minutes of the preceding meetings. First is the September 20th, 2018 special session.
So moved, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Councilman Lauterbach. Second.
I'll second.
It's been second, Councilman Smith. Call the roll, please.
Councilman
Aye.
Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor May?
Aye.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is the September 27th, 2018 special session. Is there a motion?
Motion, Mr. Vice
Scrivens,
President.
Councilman Scrivens.
I'll second.
The mayor is seconded in that motion. Are there any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor May?
Aye.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And finally is a motion from the September 27th, 18 regular session. Is there a motion, please?
So moved, Mr. Vice President.
Councilman Smith, and second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councilman Dean. Call the roll, please.
Councilman Scriven,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
Vice President Wallace.
At this time, we have, I'm sorry. Oh, aye.
Motion carried.
At this time, we have special presentations. Ms. Beth Rubin from the Greene County Department of Job and Family Services to make a presentation. Ms. Rubin.
Hi, thank you very much for having me here tonight. I appreciate your time. I will be brief. I've got a little speech that I would like to share with you regarding issue number 6, which is our Children's Services Levy, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. My name's Beth Rubin. I'm the director of the Greene County Department of Job and Family Services, and our office covers a wide variety of programs, including adult protective services, child support, workforce development, and protective children services. 1 in 4 Ohioans is connected with our agency in some fashion in a year's time, whether they're looking for a job, or they're navigating nursing home care for a loved one, or they're calling about a vulnerable neighbor. Our work impacts families, businesses, the local economy, and the community as a whole. But today, I'm here specifically to talk about our largest program area, which is Children's Services, and our local levy, issue number 6. It is a renewal. There are no new taxes. Children's Services is designated by law to provide for the care, protection, and placement of abused, neglected, and dependent children. And we do this through safety assessments as well as foster care, adoption, kinship care, and independent living programs. We recently received reaccreditation recognizing that we achieve the highest standards in our field for professionalism. A few local figures and facts. In 2017, we served over 2,000 children through prevention, protection, placement, and permanency programs. We placed 228 children, and 40 of those children were able to be reunified with their families subsequent to placement. Another 30 were able to be placed in the custody of other family members subsequent to placement, and we completed a total of 15 adoptions last year. We currently have 144 children in our custody, which is a lot of kids in Greene County. 32 of those are in our permanent custody, which means that they've been with us long enough that their parents no longer have rights, and we're looking for permanent placements for those children. 5 of them are in adoptive placements awaiting finalization, and another 27 are available for adoption. From a fiscal standpoint, while the Department of Job and Family Services relies on state and federal funds for the majority of its programs, Children's Services is very different. Local levy funds make up 63% of our budget. In addition, we need those dollars to access state and federal through reimbursement and matching funds. So we rely very heavily on the local levy. We're seeking a renewal of an existing 1.5 mil levy for 5 years. It's issue number 6. The funds are spent solely on the protection of children in our community. They're not spent for any other part of the agency at all. It's written specifically in the language that it's only for the protection of children. Child abuse and neglect affect everyone in the community, and we need to act now to maintain our current programs to keep our community's most vulnerable citizens, our children, safe. It takes a community to protect a child, and with your help, there is hope. I thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
Mr. Vice President.
Councilman Scrivens.
I'm sorry. When was the last time that you had a levy on the ballot?
5 years ago.
Okay, and is this a renewal or?
It's a renewal.
Okay,
It's 1.5 mil. It's a renewal. There's no new taxes. It's for 5 more years.
very good. Thank you, sir.
Councilman
Mr. Lauterbach.
Lauterbach.
That's just a comment. I appreciate the work you guys do, and I support the levy 100%.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor?
I will echo what Councilman Lauterbach says, and I absolutely support this renewal. And as a licensed foster parent myself, I'm a huge advocate for foster care, and this levy is very important, as is the need for more foster parents. So I hope that people who have questions would be willing to ask them and consider being foster parents. So thank you for what you're doing. It is very much appreciated.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Councilman Smith?
Thank you for being here.
Thanks. All right.
Councilman Dean?
I'll just echo everything everyone else said.
As will I, and I guess I raised the question, were you asking for an endorsement of a resolution or something?
I'm not specifically asking for that, and I very much appreciate the comments that everyone has made tonight. We just wanted to make sure that you were informed of the levy, and that any community members who happen to be in the audience tonight or watching on TV would know what this is about as well. So
If they did or do have questions, how do they contact you? How do they reach you?
They're welcome to reach me at the agency. It's the Greene County Department of Job and Family Services. We are on the county website. My email, phone number is there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate your presentation, and we appreciate the work you do. God
Thank you
bless
so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next, I'd like to invite Ms. Delana Zapata to please come forward and present regarding developmental disabilities.
Yes, and very similar to Beth, I will be brief as well, and we're not asking for any endorsement either, but we would like you to be informed about the levy that we also have on the ballot for anybody in the audience who is also watching. My name is Delana Zapata, as you said. I've actually worked with Greene County Board of Developmental Disabilities for the last 11 years. 9 of those years were with early intervention program. The last 2 years were with community relations. And several years ago, I actually worked at Butler County Developmental Disabilities, and I worked with people with traumatic brain injuries there. So developmental disabilities is a huge love of mine. It's why I'm here to give you a little bit of information about what the board does and about Issue 8, which is on the levy this year. The Board of Developmental Disabilities will be before the voters this November with Issue 8, and they're going to ask them to approve a $3.5 million renewal of a levy that was originally passed in 2004. This renewal will not increase any taxes, and it will be the third renewal of that original levy passed in 2004, meaning at its conclusion in 2024, the board will have operated and managed for 20 years without any increase in taxes or any additional funding from the community. So last year, the board met approximately 2,700 service requests spanning a whole lifetime, from early childhood programs to senior services, employment and vocational programs, residential services, day habilitation, therapies, transportation, and respite programs. And that just names some of the therapies and services that our programs do. And they do this through 4 Oaks, the Atrium, Green Inc., Homecroft, and about 50 private service providers in the community. And since the levy passed in 2004, enrollment in these core services increased by about 1,000 individuals. That's approximately a 7% increase annually. And again, the board hasn't been operating on any additional funding from the taxes, so we've been maintaining the money for 15 years, but they're doing more with what they currently have. But one aspect that hasn't changed has been the support provided by the Greene County citizens. A review of the levies all the way back to 1986 reveals that the board has been very successful each time a request has been made, so thank you all very much for that. The passage of this Issue 8 is important because it's almost 80% of the board's operating funds are derived from these levy dollars. And the renewal of this levy of $3.5 million continues to be the lowest taxing developmental disability board in the Miami Valley. And it puts us a whole mil below the statewide average, which is $4.5 million. And according to the county auditor, for every 100,000 appraised value, the homeowner will only pay about $93, and that's the same again as 2004. In addition, this levy will allow us to do those 2,700 requests for services and hopefully an additional 150 more annually. It'll allow us to meet emergency residential needs of the people that we serve, and it'll also continue to provide those excellence in those services, most importantly to help provide the health and safety of people with developmental disabilities. So I'll just end it there with just saying thank the community and all of you for your support in the past. We hope that everyone continues to support the Greene County Board of Developmental Disabilities in the future, and to please support Issue 8 and vote yes.
Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Zapata?
Once again, I know
Councilman Lauterbach.
I know you didn't ask for an endorsement, well, I will anyway. Yeah, I appreciate the work you guys do.
Thank you.
And especially, sounds to me like you're fiscally responsible.
We try very hard to be, yes, thank you.
Yeah, so appreciate that also.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Vice President.
Mr. Scrivens,
I'm in
Councilman
full
Scrivens.
support of Issue 8, and you guys do a wonderful work in a part of the community that has really no voice, and we appreciate what you do. We've seen you around the circuit here during this period promoting your issue, and every time we hear your presentation, we learn a little more. So we thank you again.
Thank you.
And you'll definitely get a renewal, but it's in $204. So if we keep renewing it, we're gonna go behind. So
We're doing our best. We, like I said, there, as he mentioned, we try to be very good stewards of the taxpayers' money. So we just keep plugging along and doing as much as we can with what we have.
Well, thanks again. God bless you.
Thank you.
Mayor Mays?
I mentioned to Councilman Louderback on your ad, I did not realize you were using these three young ladies who I happen to know personally. And just wanted to say, I know that they receive help and services from you guys. And to know these three girls is to know just joy.
Yes.
They are delightful and they bring a smile to the face. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for serving truly our community. These young ladies go to my church and thank you for what you're
Yes, the
doing.
whole family's a blessing.
Yes,
They are.
indeed.
So,
Councilman Smith?
Thank you very much.
Oh.
I was just floored to see, you have 2,700 service requests a year. Doing the math, that's like 8 a day, just on a Monday through.
That's
well,
so funny. You're the only person who's
yeah,
calculated
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I've calculated
Well,
that, but yes,
that's
it's
a little
one.
high, maybe 7, but not counting weekends. But no, I can't thank you enough. And this is really important because, as Councilman Scriven said, you're the voice of the kids that can't speak for themselves. So we appreciate the work that you do, and I always have a soft spot for social services, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Councilman
Signs
Dean?
in my yard.
Thanks for coming and presenting this to us. I think everybody else has said everything that can pretty much be
No,
said.
thank you very much for the opportunity to present it to you guys.
And I echo all those sentiments and will be voting as well to
All right,
renew
thank you.
that levy. Thank you so much,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Potter.
Have a good night.
All right. At this time, there's room on the agenda for audience comments. Please limit your comments to 3 to 5 minutes, but come forward now if you have comments to make to council. And give your name and address for the record so that it can be recorded.
Anthony Barwick, 1400 Brushrow Road, Central State University Extension, Wilberforce, Ohio, 45438.
8-4.
84. 84. Thank you. I'll be very brief. I just want to say, do introductions. I'm Anthony Barwick. I'm the interim associate administrator with Central State Extension, and we cover 6 counties as far as our assistants, which are Lucas, Greene, Cuyahoga, Butler, Hamilton, Montgomery, and Franklin. And I just want to share really briefly that we're happy to engage the community here in Greene County as far as the services that we provide. We provide services for 4-H, Family Consumer Sciences, Ag and Natural Resources, and Community and Economic Development. And as we're really building up our team, you're going to start to see more presence and partnerships. We already have a partnership with City of Xenia with the REACH, and I'm looking forward to more engagement with the community here, and you'll start to see more activities. And you can reach me direct on our website or Central State University, and if there's anything that I could provide as far as community services, community outreach, please let me know, and I look forward to establishing more of an established relationship with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you very
Barwick.
much. Are there others who would like to comment to council tonight? I observe Mr. Ling from the Jeremiah Tree is with us tonight. Good to have you with us tonight. Okay, the next is old business. And the first on the old business is ordinance number 2018-30, establishing a 20-foot disability parking space in front of 393 East 2nd Street. Originally introduced by Councilman Dean.
I'll move for passage, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second?
Or is Mr. Councilman Louderback?
Yes.
All right, we had a motion and a second by Councilman Dean and Louderback, and this time call roll.
Discussion.
Any discussion? Okay.
Discussion.
Yes, Mayor.
A question about this. If we approve this tonight, what happens to that space should that family move? Like, does that then revert back to a regular space, or?
It's a well-placed question, Madam Mayor. The space, once designated, is designated permanently. There is no reversion, and we don't keep track of residents, locations, whereabouts, anything like that. So once you designate a space as a handicapped space, it is permanently designated, and in order, under our current rules, current code, in order to change that space designation back or to some other designation, it would require another ordinance in the future.
So if that family moves, do we require that they let us know so we can revert it back, or does it happen to just stay there until somebody notices?
Correct. There is no provision in the ordinance that requires any type of notification or monitoring. It is beyond our capabilities of keeping track of that, and I don't think residents want us monitoring their
No.
locations. So, to your, I think, your concern, when council does make these decisions, you should do so understanding that that space will stay in that designation as a handicap space in perpetuity until such time as someone would raise the issue. If we happen to remember it, and we know that it's no longer needed, we could address it, but we just don't have the means or capabilities of tracking that sort of thing.
And forgive me, didn't we have a similar issue downtown when we had handicap spaces that were out of date and nobody remembered to change that back until years later, and it was raising a problem?
So, under Uniform Traffic Code and under state regulations, in order to be an enforceable designated handicap space, there are certain requirements that are necessary with regard to area around the space.
Right.
And that is intended so that if an individual has a handicapped accessible vehicle and they have, for example, an elevator or some type of ramp or lift, that there's adequate space around the handicap space to accommodate their vehicle. That is why you don't see parallel spaces in our downtown that are designated as handicap, because they would not meet the warranted requirements for a handicap space in the state of Ohio.
But there was at one point that we
And
had
there was
to
at one point,
go through it, and
through some of our efforts, as we've reevaluated our parking situation downtown, the point was raised that it did not warrant the standards. And so that designation was taken away. I might add, some of those spaces were designated at a point, they probably didn't come back through council, let me put it that way. There wasn't an actual ordinance that didn't follow what was required in the code when they were designated originally. So they were probably not legitimately warranted in the first place or approved.
and it's not, I'm not asking this because I don't desire a family to have a place to park. I'm just concerned, are we making a long-term decision that's gonna be out of date within a few years or 5 years should they move?
And this is an example of some of what we've talked about recently and some of the legislation that is actually on the agenda this evening, where under our current rules, we do have a very laborious process when it comes to parking designation. I mean, we have to take it through Traffic Commission. It has to come back to council as an ordinance for a first reading, a second reading, a 30-day wait. So typically, if you want to redesignate one space, it's not less than a 3-month process and probably more like 120 days or more. It's a very, I would argue, excessively laborious process. And that's where we've talked about, should there be some modifications to that? Do we delegate more authority back to the administration so that we can move more promptly with these things, given that they're parking? It's not, something that is a significant criminal violation, something like that. So I think your concerns are well placed. Staff is endorsing this because we have established a precedent that we would do this sort of thing, but it is not without some long-term consequences that generally are not discussed in depth.
Is there any other option for a family? I mean, I understand that there's a need here. Is there another option rather than making this a long-term solution?
Yeah, there's really, within our code structure today, in order to change that designation, it has to be warranted. Again, it has to meet those handicapped accessible standards, and it has to be approved as an ordinance by council. There really is no other mechanism that we could follow.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vice
Any other- Councilman
President,
Scrivens?
in line with what the mayor's concern is, could we stipulate that through the landlord or to the property owner, that once the current occupants or inhabitants have removed themselves from the premises, that we be notified, and in so doing, if they don't have any more handicap moving in, we can rescind that? So I don't see nothing standing to go ad infinitum forever. I mean,
The law director's here and are not here this evening, and she could probably opine slightly better than I can as a lawyer, but there's nothing within our code structure that speaks to this type of an arrangement. I would be concerned about the ultimate ability of the city to enforce that provision. Again, we simply don't have the means of maintaining a log of who's living there for how long. And again, I would also argue, I'm not sure we want to be in that business. I think this is a very legitimate concern. It truly is. And at some point, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 50 years down the road, when this resident no longer lives at this particular address, that space ostensibly could be still designated.
By doing this, though, that puts us in this business.
Ipso
In a
facto.
sense.
Yeah, it does.
Well, it's gonna be listed this way, and there's no way of monitoring and checking. I mean, once you
That's my
designate it,
point.
yeah, once you designate it, it's designated until someone else questions it in the future.
However, there seems to be some validity in the point that Councilman Scrivens is raising, that even though we are making this designation at the request of the homeowner or the tenant, we're approving it, and we would like to be notified when the use changes. That seems
It's a
reasonable
conditional
to me.
use.
Did the traffic commission, did anybody on the commission have discussion about this or concerns about
Yeah, we
this?
did.
And was it a unanimous decision to support it, or was there a dissent?
Well, as the current code's written, I would say that it would be best if it was rewritten to where there would be something. And we discussed that about, as it's written, there's nothing that we can do as far as keeping track, but we recommended that it would be best to rewrite it as what we're doing if the ordinance.
Yeah, the following ordinance.
But we don't
coming
do
up.
the writing, do we? Isn't this
Yeah,
state?
would we?
Do we, is that something that we wait until, if the new code were to change, if we approve that, I know that it says request a table, but once that's done, do you wait on that, or does it matter? Because once it's changed in the code, then it doesn't matter. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Council's,
It's not a clear
over,
question.
over my duration here, council's approved, I don't know how many, but a number of these. So the precedent has been established. Some of these residential spaces have been designated. I think we did one last year, in fact.
know, yeah.
And so there are already some examples out there where you're not holding them to the standard that you're suggesting here this evening.
Okay.
With the legislation that we have recommended and that we're recommending you table tonight to set up that legislative review committee, part of what the benefit of that would be, we wouldn't have to follow this entire process
Okay.
for reconsideration of these spaces. It could be done administratively.
So
So that
it
would
could
cut that whole
revert back.
process out, and the reversion
Okay.
would be much easier and much simpler. Yeah.
Thank you,
Call
sorry.
for the yeas and the nays.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is an ordinance number 2018-31, amending chapter 238 and section 298.0B, and enacting sections 284.01, 02, and 03 of the Administration Code, and amending charters 450-52 and 454, and repealing chapter 410 of the Traffic Code as contained in the codified ordinance of the City of Xenia, Ohio, originally introduced by Councilman Scrivens.
Mr. Vice President, the Traffic Regulation Subcommittee of Councilman Lauterbach, Councilman Dean, and myself, we haven't met yet, and I understand that our law director is scheduling that meeting, and as a result, we'd like to table this until a
Matters
further
tabled.
time.
Next is
Yeah, we would need a motion to actually table and a vote on that
So
motion.
moved, there's a
was
motion
moved
to
by
table.
Councilman Scrivens. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's seconded by Councilman Dean. Call the roll, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is resolution number 2018-FF, authorizing the city manager to execute a use agreement with Casey's Marketing Company for the use of city property located adjacent to 1625 North Detroit Street, originally introduced by Councilman Lauterbach.
Move for approval, Mr. Vice President.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by the mayor. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is public hearings, and we have none tonight. This is time that we would have public hearings, were there any, for consideration, but given there is none tonight, we will proceed to new business. And the first item of new business is ordinance number 2018-32, amending ordinance number 2018-29 to provide appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of Xenia for the fiscal year ending December 31/18 and declaring an emergency.
So moved as an emergency.
The mayor has moved as an emergency. Is there a second? We don't need a second on that one, do we?
Yes.
Yes.
We do. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman Louderback. Okay, we don't vote on that one.
Yeah, it's an emergency ordinance, so we would need a
do
vote on that
because it's an
this
emergency.
evening. Yes.
Is there discussion at this time?
Just to give some detail on this particular appropriation ordinance, there are two items related to this ordinance. The first is a loan to the Adult Recreation Services Center. As was discussed at the work session on September 13th with council, the Senior Center has requested some assistance and funding for kitchen and other furniture and equipment there at the New Reach project. It's a 10-year period, interest-free loan, and it would begin to be repaid in November of 2019. The second item is related to an accident that I'm sure most of you are familiar with that occurred here at Whiteman Street, where the crosswalk signal as well as a street light was damaged. There was some other property damaged as well. The city has since received some proceeds from insurance for that to offset some of the cost of replacing those items. And so we are requesting tonight that an appropriation ordinance be passed equal to that which was received from the insurance company to fund some fixes to those items that were damaged in that incident.
Okay. So we now call the roll on item.
Discussion.
Any further discussion? Any from council? Okay, then we call the roll, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Louderback?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And now the administrative motion approving a loan agreement. Do we need you do that one, right?
City manager.
City manager?
Thank you, sir. In conjunction with the prior item and follow-up to our prior discussions with council, based on the recommendation of the council Budget and Finance Subcommittee, tonight you're presented with recommendation for approval of the loan to the Adult Recreation and Services Center. As Mr. Duke indicated, this is for built out of their kitchen and other equipment necessary for their new space at the Reach Center. It's worth noting as part of this contractual agreement that in exchange for the loan, the city would have first the right to use the senior center space in the Reach Center, including the kitchen if needed for purposes for such things as staff training, or in the event that an alternate location was needed for council or other such purposes. And second, we'd be able to call upon the senior center for their transportation services. So we felt like this was a nice offset in exchange where the city is being provided with some value in exchange for that loan. So again, pursuant to the council's direction, staff presents the loan agreement this evening for your consideration for approval.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion from council? We do need a motion.
So
Right.
moved.
Thank you, Councilman Lauterbach. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councilman Dean. Hearing no further discussion, call the roll, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauderback?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Motion carried.
The last new business item is an administrative motion approving the schedule of bills in the amount of $493,456.60. Mr. Finance Director,
I have nothing specific related to the bills this evening.
is there a motion?
So move, Mr. Vice
Thank you,
President.
Councilman Scrivens.
Second.
Second by Councilman Lauterbach. Call the roll, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauderback?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next are the reports of committees. President Engel is absent this evening, so his BRCA report will be delayed until the next meeting. Councilman Dean, do you have your Traffic Commission report?
Yes, I do. So on Monday, October the 1st, the Traffic Commission met for a regularly scheduled meeting. We had one agenda item, and that was to consideration for no parking signs on a street, business located 915 Trumbull Street. It was requested by JCL Equipment Company. On that street, there are no parking signs on the other side of the street, so lots of times residents will park close by the entrance to this company, and then when they have semis turning in and out, they can't make the turn, so they have to make the residents move. So they figured it'd be easier if there was no parking signs for 4 feet on either side, so that then they wouldn't have to bother the residents to get them to move their cars.
So there's no action required by council at this time? Or is
Not at this time.
The zoning traffic commission has already made their action? All right. Thank you, sir. Any questions of Councilman Dean regarding? No. Next is Councilman Smith. Do you have your planning and zoning report?
Yes, I do, because we did not have a meeting actually in October. That meeting was canceled due to lack of agenda items. So the next regularly scheduled Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be on Thursday, November 1st, and that is a 6 o'clock time.
Thank you, sir. Madam Mayor, do you have your Board of Zoning and Appeals report?
Yes, sir. We met on September 24th to hear 3 variance requests. The first was a variance request for 217 Stelton Road to increase the depth of a 60-foot wide lot from 130 feet to 290 feet, exceeding the code's maximum lot depth of 3 times the lot width, filed by Ryan P. Samuelson, which was approved. Next, we heard a variance request for 1214 Shannon Lane for an accessory shed that was built without a zoning permit in a side yard, violating the code requirement that all accessory buildings be located in the rear yard, filed by Derek and Anna Schubert, which was denied. And then last, we heard a variance request for 1976 Nebraska Drive for a 6-foot tall privacy fence that was installed adjacent to a street without a permit, exceeding the code's maximum fence height of 4 feet in yards adjacent to a street right-of-way and 2 feet for solid fences with 20 feet of a street right-of-way, filed by Failer Acquisitions, which was denied.
May I ask what the consequences of those denials are? Does that mean the storage unit has to be taken down and the fence has to be taken down as well?
Yes.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Madam Mayor. Next is appointed officials report and council comments. This is the time for appointed officials reports and council comments. Mr. City Manager, followed by Finance Director, and then we'll proceed to the Mayor.
Thank you, sir. A number of items we wanted to report on this evening. First, I wanted to thank all of the participants that came out for our first session of our Citizens Academy. It was a very successful first meeting. We have closed that group for this particular class of enrollees. We'll be meeting 3 more occasions. We had a very, very good first meeting. Appreciate the mayor coming out to support the effort, the law director and finance director and joining me in that presentation, that first event. Very, very good first meeting. I think we all agreed. So we're already having some consideration about future classes, perhaps as early as next spring. So we will promote that as we make those decisions. I wanted to mention that the city has launched on our website and will be sending out, providing more information, basic factual information about the 2 ballot items that will be on this November's ballot related to the city of Xenia. Those are issues 11 and 20, having to do with the street issue, as well as 1 charter amendment, which essentially would add the requirement for charter review within our charter. So we are preparing information, just basic factual information for folks in the community to be aware of as they contemplate how they want to vote on those issues, and we'll be providing more information on that in the future. It's worth noting, I ran across last night, the city of Riverside has a ballot measure on for November 6th. They're seeking an 8 mil levy to fund major road projects in their community. They're one of several in the area that are pursuing some similar types of either capital improvement or road work levies, and so our community's not alone in our ask for 3.5 mils. Wanted to also announce tonight reminders for upcoming events in our community related to the Halloween season. The city will partner again with Xenia Community Schools for Trunk or Treat. That'll be at Shawnee Elementary on October 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. Again, that's Trunk or Treat with the Xenia Community Schools at Shawnee Elementary, October 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. If you don't get enough candy that night, the following evening on Halloween itself, October 31st, we'll have our Xenia Community Trick-or-Treating, or Beggars Night, as some call it. That'll be, again, from 6 to 8 p.m. So, again, trick-or-treating the night of Halloween, October 31st, from 6 to 8 p.m. As a standard practice this time of year, we've also begun to make announcements to the community about our leaf collection program. We're pleased to be able to provide some expansion to that service this year. As always, leaf collection is a very precarious service delivery because we never know quite when leaves are going to fall. We're kind of beholden to Mother Nature. So we've looked at taking some steps to expand that service. So we'll be actually providing 2 rounds of collection this year. We do have on our website information on leaf collection. It has all of the different zones, what to expect, the dates for that. I won't get into that this evening. As we get a little closer, I'll remind folks. But I did want to let folks know as you start to think about that leaf collection season that the information is available on explorexenia.com. Finally, I wanted to just mention to council, we of course, as council's aware, begin planning the legislative calendar for action items and for meetings weeks, if not months, in advance. We are out upon that season when we should make consideration for Thanksgiving and the week of Christmas. As is traditional, Thanksgiving falls on your second meeting of the month. Typically, council, the preference you have is to move that meeting up to Tuesday, but we did want to present that to council this evening to get some feedback on how you'd like to proceed. Obviously, the council president isn't here this evening, but I did want to plant that seed and see if there are, is generally a direction you want to move with respect to that meeting, and then that'll allow us to begin planning ahead.
Have you discussed it with the council president?
I have not. Obviously, that was the intent this evening. Traditionally, we do move it up to that Tuesday. It's worth adding, we try to keep that meeting agenda very brief. We understand that folks have the holiday on their mind, and so we intentionally try to keep that to just essential items and keep that meeting pretty brief.
Do we want to make that move tonight, or we want to wait till the council president's present?
I don't think he'll-
That's fine with me, but I do have a question. Thanksgiving falls on Thursday.
Mhm.
What about the employees? Are they off Thursday and Friday?
Most of our employees are off on Thursday and Friday. All of our administrative staff and our essential employees who have to work do have additional benefits if they have to come in that Friday, or if they do work on Thanksgiving, that's a holiday day. The only exception, the day after Thanksgiving, our AFSCME maintenance workers do not have that day off. They actually have an additional personal day that they can use at another time. So for the most part, yeah, there's a consideration for all of our employees, and we are closed both Thursday as well as Friday after Thanksgiving.
Is Christmas the same this year?
Yeah, so we do have Christmas Day falls on a Tuesday this year, which is one of those odd circumstances. Our employees do have Christmas Day off. It's worth noting that our second monthly meeting of December is on the 27th, that following Thursday. That meeting could probably go on as scheduled. It too would be a very light agenda meeting. I'll be honest, I would avoid even having that meeting, although the finance director would probably say that we have some financial end-of-year types of functions. So I think you just need to decide if you're okay with having that, that meeting that week, or if you feel you need to push it back or some other alternate time. It could probably stand where it is, but I did want to call it to your attention that it is 2 days after Christmas.
If council would be in agreement with me, for the employees to be off Monday, that's not a scheduled holiday. Financially, how much would that cost the city?
So it depends on what council would direct. Obviously, for your non-union staff, a lot of your non-24/7 services, if they're off that Monday, you're really losing productivity, not necessarily additional cost. With some of the other unions, if you're granting it across the board, in years past, what we've done is said, we'll give you an additional personal day, because obviously there are certain employees who cannot take that day off. And we've put in the provisions of that when they're off that additional day, it can't generate overtime. So theoretically, you could do it without having any actual additional cost, but you would have obviously some production lost, so some productivity costs, but no actual cost.
I don't know how the rest. I think it'd be a good gesture for our employees, but that's.
Are you making a motion, Mr. Councilman?
Well, I guess yeah.
Councilman, if it's worth, we have done this in the past. I think it's a nice gesture. The employees appreciate it, and it's worth noting. Coincidentally, just this week, I was contacted by the county. They were looking at giving that day off for their employees, and were wondering if we were doing the same, and thought we might work. So it's actually good timing. I was going to mention that offline, but since you brought it up.
I support that.
Let's take a motion.
Okay,
Let's make a
I'd like
motion.
to make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's properly moved and seconded that we do what we need to do to give the employees Christmas Eve off this year. Are you ready for the question? There's any discussion? Call the roll.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Ingle?
President Wallace,
Oh,
Vice
sorry.
President Wallace,
Vice President
aye.
Wallace.
It's not for the.
Almost got through the whole meeting without doing that.
No, we're late. So I think what I also heard, or what we heard, was desire to do as in the past with that Thanksgiving week and look at Tuesdays. Obviously, it'll be up to the council president to ultimately approve that agenda, but I think it's our understanding that we'll go ahead and presume that we'll look for that meeting. I don't know what the date is, November
20th.
20th, thank you, Mayor. It'll be
22nd.
November 20th in lieu of the 22nd. So, all right, is that good? Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have this evening.
Madam, Mr. Finance Director.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did have one other item that we wanted to provide this evening. We had hoped to cover this in the work session, but it is appropriate to bring forward in the regular session at this time. Council had requested that staff at some point this year evaluate the feasibility and any
Yes.
financial benefit for natural gas aggregation. Many years ago, voters did approve natural gas aggregation for the city of Xenia. We have also, subsequent to that, voters approved electric aggregation, and we have been engaged in electric aggregation in the community for the last number of years, and that has netted a 7-figure savings over that period of time for our community, for our local residents who participate in that program. We did work with Palmer Energy, who is our consultant for aggregation services. The Assistant City Manager, this is his project, and he's worked with them. So I'm going to kick it over to Jared to just kind of walk you through the results of what they found in terms of any potential value add for a program.
Yeah, so Palmer issued an RFP on our behalf, similar to how they did with electric aggregation, and the results came back slightly dismal. So natural gas is different than electricity in Ohio. There's tons of supply, so the customers who don't go out and search for their own contract, don't lock in their own price, their price is very competitive still, just because there's so much supply and competition in natural gas. So the RFP we issued, if we were to aggregate the city's natural gas usage, there's not significant savings. So Palmer came back and recommended that we move forward with Volunteer Energy for a 24-month contract. And they suggested we lock in a price, so it's kind of towards the bottom right of that graph I gave you at $3.89. And this is just a preliminary offer. We'd have to go back and reset with the market and check that. But it'd save an average citizen in Xenia about $5 a year. So they recommended that. Staff was not excited just because of the administrative costs and explaining aggregation and the change for the resident, and it wasn't a significant savings. So we've issued RFPs like this in the past just to check and see what the savings was. This one came back with not much savings. So obviously if council wants to move forward, we'd move forward, but there is an administrative burden to the savings that would come. So thoughts, questions?
I appreciate your due diligence, and personally, I don't think it's worth moving forward with. And I was corrected at one of our council meetings that the voters have already voted. I thought originally the voters voted for electric aggregation, but I guess it was electric.
Yeah, many years before the gas had been done, it just had never been acted upon.
So it would not have to be a ballot issue.
Correct.
No, correct. It's already been approved, and nothing prevents us from coming back again next year. Obviously, we do at this time of year to lock in the best prices preceding the winter season, and you're locking in those prices over that winter season. So we would begin looking next summer. We can come back. The reality is, as Jared said, we're kind of at ground zero for production of this commodity with the shale fracking here in Ohio and Pennsylvania. The supply is abundant. We're very close to where that is produced, and so there's very little transmission expense. So the market just doesn't warrant the aggregation program in this part of the country at this time. These prices can fluctuate and change. They are tied very much to electricity prices because a lot of natural gas is used in the production of electricity. So the price points may be different next year, but at this price point, potentially, it's not even guaranteed, but the potential savings per resident, we just didn't think warranted action this year. It's not enough savings for the amount of work.
Mr. Vice President.
Yes, sir, Mr. Councilman Scrivens.
I'd like to thank Assistant Manager Jared Holloway for his work on this project. And even though we're probably not going to go out and change what we have, but we will have this again to come around, and every time it comes around, we'll take a serious look and see if there's enough warrant for us to change. But right now, it's not, and I want to thank you for your efforts, and thank Councilman Lauterbach for stimulating these efforts. So every year, we'll get a chance to take a look at how our utilities are coming down the pike. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll be voting against this. So.
Other members of council?
So we'll
Given that we,
thanks for nothing.
Yeah.
sounds like,
Yeah, no specific
So
action is
count-
required this meeting. You would only, if you wanted us to pursue, we would request a motion to be approved, to instruct us to move forward, and we would have to act very quickly yet this month. But I think what we're hearing is that there's no desire, so no action is necessary.
so-
Thank you, though.
Okay, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Jared, we appreciate your effort, and, what did somebody say thanks for nothing?
With that, I actually have nothing further this evening.
Finance Director, Mr. Duke.
Thank you, Vice President. One thing I'd like to communicate to the public related to income tax, October 15th is the filing deadline for those who have extensions. So if you have not yet filed your 2017 tax return, city tax return, then you would need to do that by this Monday. As always, our staff is there if you need assistance in preparing that tax return. They will help you in that preparation. But please make sure that if you have not yet filed that return, that you file it by October 15th. And that's all I have.
Very good. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right. I will let my counterparts say more about this, but on Friday, September 28th, we participated in the Fire Ops 101, or whatever we want to call it. Mr. Duke and Mr. Holloway, as well as Councilman Dean and Councilman Scrivens, and it was, our fire department put it on, the union put it on, and it was with Beaver Creek, Wright Pat, and Fairborn, and it was a humbling, I'm gonna go with humbling experience. It was a phenomenal experience, but it was very well done. It was extremely educational, and I just want to thank our guys at the fire department for what they did. It was excellent. I'm gonna skip around just a little bit. I'll come back to October 1st, but on Tuesday, October 2nd, participated in the ribbon cutting for the Hampton Inn. Very excited to see it open. It is beautiful in there. If you haven't had a chance to see it yet, please go. It's just a huge win for the city of Xenia, and I'm very excited. And then the next day, October 3rd, another ribbon cutting for the remodeled McDonald's. That was a lot of fun. Took my kids. They got to meet Grimace and Birdie. They were dressed as Batman and a princess. It was a very festive day. And our fire department came out, and they did a flag raising. It was really nice what they did. So thank you again to our fire department. And then Thursday, October 4th, the city manager, myself, Commissioner Kugler, and the county administrator, Mr. Huddleston, we had a sit down. We had a very productive meeting, very positive. There are several projects that we are working together on, and I'm just very encouraged by the way we were able to come to the table, talk through some of the challenges, and speak very openly, very frankly, and very positively. So I'm just really pleased to see that coming together. And then on that same day in the evening, as our city manager mentioned, was the Citizens Academy, and I was happy to attend that. Great stuff. I want to congratulate our staff for what they've done. It was very well done. I'm excited about the next meetings and what we're learning. I'm learning things. There were several. It was really enjoyable to see people in there. Ms. McPeak was in there. Just the aha moments where the light bulb goes off, and even myself, oh, I did not know that. And it was really good. So thank you for what you guys are doing. Sunday on the 7th, I celebrated with the Green Memorial and the Circle of Victory. It's a celebration for cancer survivors. It's a walk and a fundraiser. People were out there who are cancer survivors. They were out walking. There was a lot of people out there who were walking in support of people who are currently fighting cancer. It was, for myself, personally encouraging. I got to meet Dr. Nanda, who was the oncologist who cared for my father when he was battling cancer, and just be able to personally thank her for her care. So it was a really well-done event, and I was happy to be a part of that. And then I wanted to come back to Monday, October 1st. I was a part of a group of people that went to the Green to do a candlelight vigil for domestic violence awareness. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It was a sobering event. A woman who is a domestic violence survivor shared her story, and it was horrifying. I'll just say it was a horrifying story. And to hear her fight and her willingness to put her story out there for the sake of other people was incredible. So I'm not going to read the whole proclamation, but I did want to read just part of it at the very end, because I think it was something that myself, Mayor Stone from Beaver Creek, Xenia Township was there, Rick Perales was there. We all had very similar language in our proclamations, and we all read this paragraph because we thought it was important. We wanted to recognize that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and to call on all citizens to recognize this important month, to step up, take a stand against domestic violence, and for those who are victims of domestic violence. And we urge all of you to reach out for immediate help, break your silence, and end the violence. So if that is something that resonates with you, we just want to encourage you to step up and speak up. So that is all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilman Lauterbach.
I have nothing this evening, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just real quickly, I was honored to represent the city September 30th at the Jeremiah Tree 5K run that they had. So they had a handful of runners there, and just nice. It started at Xenia Station. Mayor Mays was unable to attend. They asked for her first, but then, so I jumped in there. So
Thank you.
I know you're busy, so I really appreciate that. Also, good news to Xenia. October 5th was the homecoming, and Xenia did a nice job there and won. There's a lot of people in the stands, so I enjoyed watching that game. I do want to say congratulations. On Monday, October 8th, at the Xenia Board of Education office, I didn't attend, but they recognized a junior at Xenia High School, Jacob Fox, who worked on his Eagle Scout project, and that project was refurbishing the Xenia High School marching band trailer. And he did that with his parents. He's the son of Lori and Eddie Fox, and actually the grandson of Elaine Hughes, who volunteers a lot for the city. So just want to tell him congratulations for that. And you know, scouting it's just a great project, and I appreciate the kids that still participate in that. And other than that, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Smith. Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I have about 6 things. First thing, we definitely want to congratulate Xenia High School for winning their homecoming game in such a fine fashion. And I just go Bucks. As a matter of fact, this Friday, Xenia is on the road playing against West Carrollton. So go Bucks, come in with that W. Central State's homecoming is this Saturday. And I'm an alumni of Central State, and I plan to be under the alumni tent after the parade, and that'll probably be as far as I'll be able to get. On September the 21st, I was unable to attend a scheduled meeting that the Greene County Career Center Science Advisory Board had, and I had expressed my regrets to the chairperson for that. I was able to participate in the grand opening and ribbon cutting of the Xenia Hampton Inn, 88-room facility with an inside pool. So my colleague, the vice president, and the mayor were both there, along with the chairperson of the Xenia Chamber of Commerce, and a very good event, a very, very dignified type of event. Just wanted to make a short comment about our opportunity to see what a day in the life of firefighters is about. And one thing it was, as the mayor said, it was humbling, and I'll go a step further and say it was beguiling, because you really didn't know what to expect. But when we were in the smoke-filled building and couldn't see anything, it was nice to know that I had Ryan Duke in front of me, and I think we went into another building, smoke-filled, and If it wasn't for Councilman Dean, I'd have probably been in there a minute or two. But I had to come on up out of there. Firefighters do a thankless job, and we should thank them every time we hear that siren. Every time, because they're going out to represent us, and they're going out to help somebody. So I want to thank the fellas, Corey, and then Matt,
Mike.
and then, of course, the Chief Rigsby. Everybody, the whole event was just superb. And we have to do more of that, where we get the municipalities and the council people and the policymakers working together to see actually how this money is being spent. And it was a revelation to me, and I was happy to participate. And then I'd like to get Mr. Chris Berger's crew up at 369 East Church. Apparently the residents have moved out, and trash collection day was Monday, and it's already Thursday, so you know trash has been strewn as a result of the wind, and we need to interdict on that quick enough. And other than that, just want to say that my experience here on council is going to be ending soon, and it's been a very joyful experience, and I can't say nothing bad about any council person, not one, because we're all here for a goal, and that is to move Xenia along and move it forward together. And we do this very good. I just want to compliment my colleagues, especially the mayor. She is, I called her when we were doing the fire ops, she's intrepid. This woman not only has beauty and brains, she has courage. She's climbed up this extension ladder on the bucket truck, about 100 feet, and Finance Director Duke did it also, after he saw the mayor do it. Our mayor deserves a round of applause just for what she does on a daily basis. I just can't compliment her enough. She is #1 in my book. So I can't wait for you to run again so I can vote for you. So, but everybody on this council, I voted for at one point in the past, and I don't have any qualms about it. You win a few and you lose a few.
Even me?
Even you. And just want to thank everybody, especially the citizens who call me all the time and say, why are cars racing up and down East Church Street now that it's smooth and we don't have any 25-mile-an-hour signs? I said, I'll take that up with Councilman Dean and the Traffic Commission. So Councilman Dean has been formally taken up with you. We need some 25-mile-an-hour signs on East Church Street because it's smooth now, and people fly up and down that street. They think it's part of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So.
Well, why don't we just tear the street back up?
Hey, that's a good idea. I like that. But thank you, Mr. Vice President, for your time, and God bless everybody.
Councilman Dean.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to echo what they said about the fire ops. It was very informative and humbling and hot. So, thank you.
And Councilman Dean's another one with courage. A man of few words, but the man has courage. I just want everybody to know that. So, and he's humble too. Look at him. Yes.
Well, I don't really have anything to add. The mayor's already mentioned that first incident that you mentioned was, what was it we did at Hampton Inn? It was absolutely exciting. That was my first time going around and taking a look at anything. And the conference room, of course, was where they had the goodies. That was nice. But it was just a beautiful, beautiful place. And I'm looking forward to taking the wife out and spending the weekend.
A staycation.
A staycation, I think the mayor calls that. But, and we thank you really for the effort that you've expended with the county. That seems to be bearing fruit. And we thank God for that, because there's so much that we need to do more of with the county and the township and Xenia, because we're in this community together. And I thank you for your efforts there. Hearing nothing else, the chair will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I think we would want to move to go into a special session.
Okay, do we need to do that again? Then we'll entertain a motion for a special session since we can't adjourn.
I move to rescind. I'm just kidding. Some move to go into special.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Duke, would you call the roll?
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor May.
Aye.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mr. Vice President, may
I
I
don't
recommend